So, hi Boston buddies. Welcome everyone to today's installment of Brunch with the Boston Buddies. I don't have a clever name, so if anybody can think of a clever name, please let me know. Today's installment is be interviewing a couple of representatives from the Second Step. Second Step is the charity that we have a partnership with. They've given us a bid the last 3 years. And in return for that, we obviously raise money, but we also raise awareness. And the bigger benefit is actually the people that they help get help. So the Second Step is an organization that helps survivors of domestic violence. And we have Mimi Sperl with us, who is the Volunteer and Education Coordinator. Hi, Mimi. And we also have Dana Winslow, who is the Events and Development Coordinator. Hey, Dana. So I guess maybe I'll start with you, Mimi. How are you holding up these days with the current crisis?
Good. So, it's all just one day at a time. Most of our staff is working remotely right now, which has been definitely an adjustment. So I'm working remotely. Most of our community advocates are working remotely. And then we have some residential advocates that are popping into our shelters every once in a while. But, we're taking it day by day, trying to navigate the new challenges and just make it all work.
Right. And how about you, Dana? How's this new reality for you so far?
It's all right. I'm actually a co-op student from Northeastern University. So I'm so glad and happy to be able to work at the Second Step during this time and continue the work that I've been doing there for the past few months. And very grateful that I'm able to work remotely and continue that work for the next few months as well. Making it through, watching some movies.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The best I can.
So just so you guys know, Natalie Dorset just joined. She says hi to both of you. Natalie was.
Oh, Natalie, hello.
Yes. Hey, Natalie. So how about, I guess for people who are new to the group that weren't here last year or the last couple of years, maybe either Mimi or Dana, whoever wants to just let us know, like, who do you guys serve? Who does the Second Step serve, and what services do you offer?
Sure. So I can give kind of like a broad overview of the organization, and then Dana can hop in whenever. But so the Second Step was founded in 1992, and we started predominantly as a transitional living program. So, and that's kind of where our name comes from. So when someone is experiencing domestic violence and they choose to exit that relationship, right, there's a lot of different places that people can go. But for some folks, if they don't have a family member or friend that they can live with, or it's not a good long-term fit, and they're not in a place financially where they can go into their own housing, then they'll go into an emergency shelter. And emergency shelters are great, but you can only stay there for 90 days. And so, when we think about like what can happen in 90 days in terms of larger systems and trying to get new housing and everything, that's not a lot of time. So the Second Step was founded as kind of a solution to, well, what comes after emergency shelter, if not 100% like independent housing. And so we started with one house in 1992. And later branched into 2 residential shelters. And families can stay with us in those residential settings for up to 2 years. And while they're there with us, we offer a variety of services to kind of help them stabilize both in their housing and emotionally, provide any family supports that they need, and kind of run the gamut with that. And that's a really unique program. So we're one of the few in the state. And then even beyond that, we are the only in the state that serves domestic violence victims specifically, that has an ADA compliant room. So one of our houses, like if someone were in a wheelchair, had some mobility issues, we can meet that need. We also have the largest family dwelling space of all of the transitional houses in Massachusetts, which is also awesome. So we, in our largest room, can house, I want to say it's either a parent and 6 kids or a parent and 7 kids. So I never remember if it's 6 or 7. But again, that's great, because if you are coming from a situation where your family composition is making it more challenging for you to get that resource, we are very proud that we have a solution available for people for that. So from that transitional living program, that's where we started. And then in forming relationships with survivors and really finding out what they needed to heal and get back on their feet, we really looked to the people that we were serving to help us guide kind of what the next phase of our programs were going to be. And so just like we were seeing that families needed an extra step before they were on their own in terms of housing, we were also starting to see that kids needed an extra step, either transitioning into a new school system, or maybe they're in the same school system, but they're dealing with a lot of the trauma that they faced. They're dealing with kind of leaving home, living somewhere new. And so shortly after we started our residential program, we started a after school program for the kids living in our 2 shelters. And so again, it's just like another space that kids can kind of come together. All their peers in that space know what they've been through. So there's kind of less pressure to explain who you are, where you come from, sort of deal.
Yep.
And we found it as a really great tool in helping kids feel more settled, more established as they kind of move on to the next phase of their education. So that's for some of our younger kids. Since then, we've also grown to include our community office, which serves people that don't necessarily come to us through the residential program, right? Because not everyone needs emergency shelter, not everyone needs transitional living. And that program was great because we can serve folks all the way from kind of the initial stages of, I'm not even sure if what I'm experiencing is domestic violence, but I want to talk through it with someone, to I've made the decision to leave, to I've made the decision that it's not safe for me to leave, but I need to know how to be safer in my relationship, in my home with this person. So we really serve kind of the gamut of that. And with that too, it's nice because we can kind of keep an open door policy, right? So we know that for a lot of folks that have experienced domestic violence, it's not like a one and done thing.
Right.
And so if someone, say, wanted to leave a partner, we know that it takes on average 7 attempts to leave before that person can successfully fully separate from that relationship. So we don't ever want people to feel like, based on a decision that they make, that our door is closed to them, or based on you know, like where they are in their process, that we are not able to serve them. So that was a really great kind of next step in our programs. We also, through our community office, have our Steps to Justice program, which is a legal program. We have pro bono attorneys and also some legal aides who help with everything from restraining orders, immigration, custody, divorce cases. Like, they really run a pretty full scope of what they can offer folks if their legal situation is a result of the violence that they faced at home. And so again, like, you know, sometimes we get the question of, well, why does a city like Newton, and for folks that aren't as familiar with the area, it is a more affluent suburb. And so sometimes we get the question of like, well, why does a city like Newton, or why does a more affluent suburb need pro? What that goes back to is kind of a lot of things. But, you know, just because someone is not living at poverty doesn't necessarily mean that they have $60,000 or what have you to keep a lawyer on retainer. And so that was a big thing. But also, and we can get into this a little bit more later in terms of types of abuse, but one type of abuse that is very prevalent is we've dubbed it like financial abuse. And so if you're in a position where you're trying to leave someone and you need to get all your ducks in a row before you start kind of making waves, you know, it's probably, and you know that they're either watching your finances, only giving you an allowance, and so not really giving you the power to spend in that way. So you don't have access to those financial resources, all these different things. Like, there was such a need for people to be able to access that resource and maybe not cut a check at the end of that session. So that was another really great program. In our community programs, we have grown exponentially. So we serve about 800 adults, or sorry, 500 adults, 300 children through that program every year. And that includes mentoring, you know, group healing opportunities, one-on-one advocacy. We have an English language learning program, again, for someone whose cultural identity or language capacity was used against them as kind of a way of furthering violence that they were experiencing. And then we also started a youth program specifically underneath that later branched out more independently to serve a lot of the kids and teens that we were working with, because more and more research is indicating that kids and teens are not secondary victims or secondary survivors, as we kind of previously thought before, but they really are experiencing domestic violence in full force. And so you know, how can we serve them and do some prevention work with them to kind of stop the cycle that we're seeing. So that's like the quick and dirty of all of our programs.
Yes, you guys are doing a lot. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And so that, you know, just personally was really one thing that drew me to the organization, was that we can offer this really wide array of services and provide this true wraparound kind of community-based, family-based network of services.
Okay. Now, the housing that you offer, like, how is it like multifamily housing, or are they like, and how many residences do you offer?
Yeah. So we have a couple different layouts. So in our emergency, in our transitional house program, it is a house, and each family gets like a bedroom. The bedrooms are larger than probably the bedroom that you have at your house or the bedroom that I have at my apartment. But it is like one family to a room, and we get really creative about how we can help outfit them with furniture and different accommodations and stuff to really make it comfortable and livable. You know, our previous facilities director, sorry, I started getting an echo. Okay. Our previous facilities director was always going in and like hanging curtains and stuff, and like trying to make things more livable if we had like, you know, teenage siblings that needed their own space and that sort of thing. So in one of our houses, so between our two houses, we can house up to 18 families. And we use the term families pretty broadly. So a family can mean one individual who has left as a result of domestic violence, and like I said, all the way up to one parent with 6 children. So the actual number of people coming in and out of our door on a day-to-day basis might look very different. It really just kind of depends on what we've needed to do to kind of fit those families in. Okay. And yeah, and so from there, we also work closely with a lot of our local housing authorities. And I know specifically in the area, we have a couple Section 8 affordable housing units, apartments. So once families are moving out of our shelter, they can move into more of an apartment style dwelling. But our houses have like, you know, each family has their private area. Sometimes there's a shared bathroom, sometimes it's a private bathroom. And then we have like shared living room spaces, shared kitchens. And our after school classroom is actually based out of one of our houses, which is really great.
Okay. And do you get money, like public money, or are you 100% dependent on donations and the work that like Second Step has to do, fundraising, things like that?
Yeah. Dana, do you want to speak to that one since you're
Sure, yeah. So
tied?
I believe that it's about half and half.
Okay.
So about half of our annual budget comes from the government, and about half comes from fundraising.
Okay.
And yeah, and most of our fundraising is done through sort of these like major events, like we might get into a little bit later, an annual gala, things like the marathon. And yes, that's where most of our money comes from.
Right, and normally your annual gala is one of your biggest fundraisers, is the biggest fundraiser of the year, I think.
Yes,
it happens, yeah. And it's supposed to happen at the end of March or beginning of April, and this year, obviously, it had to be canceled. Or is it canceled or rescheduled?
It has been postponed.
Postponed, okay.
So hopefully, I mean, who knows how long all this is going to last, but hopefully it will be happening in September. But yeah, so that was something that we did want to just say today, is like that we're so grateful for all of the help from the Boston Buddies during this time, because that is our biggest annual fundraiser. And unfortunately, we've had to shift it into September, which means shifting it to a different fiscal year, which sort of changes how our finances can sort of function. And so, yeah, we've been so grateful for sort of the influx of support and fundraising from this community, which has been so generous. So.
Right. We're trying, but I think you and a lot of other charities right now are kind of feeling the wrath of some of what's going on right now, because obviously you budgeted for that particular event to happen, and you have things lined up for the summer, which are probably now going to be affected as well, just because the money is not there.
Totally.
Is there something that people can do? You know, somebody that's listening right now, is there anything that they could do to try and help with that, or like? I guess obviously they can donate to your page. Like, where can they go to donate?
So if you go to just the secondstep.org, there's a little pop-up on our website that'll take you straight to this thing that I'm about to talk about. And as well, if you go to the secondstep.org/donate, it'll take you to this, which is the Survivors Emergency Fund. which is a fund that we've set up specifically sort of like for this time to sort of offset the loss of fundraising from the gala and to like supplement some of the needs during this time during COVID-19. And so that's a great place. If you are interested in supporting the second step and supporting our services during this time, that's a great place to donate.
Mm-hmm. And I also am going to jump in because I know that a lot of you guys are running the Molly Mile for us, which is awesome. And we're so grateful for that too. And, you know, when we talk about fundraising, like any amount that you can give helps, but we also know that there's power in numbers. And so we've shared on the Molly Mile Facebook page and on the Strava page too, how you can set up kind of your own fundraiser to do a peer-to-peer fundraiser. So if any of you want to kind of do that extra step in spreading the awareness and helping us fundraise, and you are running that Molly Mile, that's a great way to do it. It's super easy to set up a page. You know, our girl Shelly set one up for the marathon, but you can all have little pages going too. We won't stop you.
Sure. After this call, we can post it on our Facebook page too, so everybody can see that link.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I saw that you created that comment in the Strava. There is a Strava event for anybody out there that is running the Molly Mile. Here you go. Here's Molly Mile medal.
Woo!
It's got the cool Second Step logo right there. That's their logo. But yeah, there's a Strava event. We are currently sold out, but I'm talking with the vendor. Maybe we will get some more medals. They will just come late. So I'm not sure if anybody that's listening, if you want a medal and you want to sign up, it would probably not get here until about the middle of May. So probably going to do that today and order some more, so just so more people can sign up. But again, all the funds raised for that Molly Mile are going towards the second step of this organization, trying to help people get on their feet. And obviously, it sounds like there's a lot more that goes into this than most people probably know, with all these services that you offer, including the legal services, which can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the housing expenses. You're doing schooling for them as well. Plus, do you offer other like normally people that are going through this, you know, there's a lot of financial issues that they could face. Do you offer them other like clothing and food assistance and things like that as well?
Totally. So, you know, based on each family's needs. So the thing about domestic violence is kind of an interesting issue socially, right? Because it impacts literally everyone. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter who you pray to, doesn't matter what gender you identify as, nothing. It touches everyone's lives. And so in some ways, agencies like the second step have to be really creative in how we respond and kind of can adapt to meet each individual or each family's needs, because one family's needs can look so different from another. So yes, through a lot of our programs, if we do have a family come to us that is experiencing that financial hardship, we can help connect them through to resources. You know, we have people give to us in terms of in-kind donations of like food, clothing, what have you. We do a lot of toiletry drives for the folks in our programs, which is great.
Especially
so
now.
We can help in those ways. Yes, yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, trying to get cleaning supplies for our houses right now has been a real wild journey, especially because one of our houses, there's a bleach allergy. And so not every type of cleaning supply is actually like viable for that house. And so, you know, like I said, we get really creative sometimes. We're not mixing chemicals though, which is, you know,
right.
God bless.
Good.
But yeah, so we can offer like a lot of different types of assistance for families, which is really great.
How are you guys affected right now with this COVID-19? And are you seeing rising phone calls or cases, things like that? What are you seeing in the real world?
Sure. So I can maybe speak to that a little more directly because my position is very unique. And so I kind of straddle all the different programs and teams that I mentioned earlier. But I would say that, you know, the blanket statement is that we know that it's unsafe for many people to be sheltering in place at home right now. And the national hotlines and kind of like the individual hotline programs are seeing a total increase in calls. And it hasn't quite hit an increase in demand for service yet, but we know that that increase is coming. And this is something that we can prepare for a little bit, because we see this type of pattern often around the holidays, right? When everyone is home together for the holidays, it might not be safe for you to seek out services and call for help. But once things die down a little bit and people are in a place where they can move or speak or what have you a little more freely, that's when we're going to see those numbers climb. And so, we're trying to do everything that we can as a team and as service providers to make sure that we are educated, make sure that we are mentally and all these things ready to meet that increase in need when it comes. And that's something that we've seen in other countries as they start to lift some of these stay-at-home orders or different restrictions. Oops, sorry, I knew my dog would bark. Oh, hold on one second. And so, yeah, so I think in terms of that, that's something that we will see coming. The biggest thing for our day-to-day, I would say right now, is survivors are experiencing all of the things that everyone else is experiencing, right? So people that we serve are losing their jobs. They are feeling isolated. They're feeling vulnerable. They are not able to lean on some of their support networks like they have in the past for when things get tough. Churches are closed. Mental health providers are working more remotely and stuff. And so a group of people that already oftentimes feel isolated and vulnerable and kind of pushed to the margins is experiencing that in tenfold right now. And I think the greatest challenge that we're seeing is service providers across the board, or one of the greatest challenges, I should say, is that as we've all, as a society, adjusted to a lot of this, right, we're trying to figure out all these new ways to use technology. But the very true reality for many of the people that we work with is that their technology is not safe. So either they have an abuser that they live with that they can't speak freely about when they, as they would normally when they are accessing our services, or maybe they don't live with that person, but that person has figured out how to put spyware or malware on their computer, is tracking their phone minutes, is reading text conversations, is hacking their email, all these different things. And so, in some ways, it's really great that we live in a time and place where, if somebody needed services, we could hop on Zoom with them and try to work through what they needed and safety plan with them and all these things. But our advocates have had to get really creative around, people are home with their abusers, people are home with their kids, and it's not something that we can always talk about freely in front of others. Right. I know even anecdotally, one of our advocates has had to kind of come up with like a code word to use with their clients. That means like, basically it's the client's way of saying, oh, I can't talk about that. My kid is in the room right now. And so it's just a way of adapting those services so that we know like, okay, that's still an issue for that person. They don't have to minimize what's happening or talk about what's happening in front of their child. And we can come back to it at a later time.
Okay. So we do have a question from the audience here. So Linda Van Acker, she's actually one of our members. She's a runner. She's just outside of Philadelphia. She has a group of runners as well, separate from us, called Run 610, which is actually the area code I grew up in.
Nice.
She is asking, how many full and part-time staff does the Second Step employ?
Sure. So I would say we hover around 25 as a rough estimate. So that includes our full-time staff, such as our youth advocates, community advocates, lawyers. Our lawyers are a little bit funky because we have, I want to say, 4 lawyers working as 3 full-time equivalents. So their hours get a little funky. Mm-hmm. And then we also have evening staff because we do have a little bit more of a requirement to meet the needs of our families in our shelter. So we do have, it's not staffed 24/7, but it is staffed a little bit later into the evening. Gotcha. Yeah, so 25 people answering all of these needs.
Yeah, that's not that many.
No.
Right, and it's almost 24 hours a day. Because I just remember Matt Swoveland, who used to be the director there, talking to him. I'd be talking to him at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and he'd get interrupted because he'd get a call from the police because he'd have to go to the police station or something to go help
totally
a survivor and get them out of a bad situation and bring them to a safe shelter.
Yeah, so our advocates our residential advocates especially do operate with an on-call system. And so, you know, even though we are not operating 24 hours a day, we really do make ourselves pretty widely available to the people we're working with, which can mean some really late days. And, you know, we make it work.
Gotcha. Okay. So what else can we do to support you guys? I mean, we've got our Moley Mile, we got donation pages. We do have a lot of locals actually to the Boston area. Is there any volunteer services that, like, do you accept volunteers, things like that, to come and help, or like what can people do to help?
Yeah, so we do have a volunteer program,
Okay.
but I would say right now, as we're all kind of working remotely, it's been hard to keep up with some of those volunteer activities.
Okay.
You know, we get, like I said, the biggest thing that we can ask anyone for right now is their financial support. It just helps us, as we all feel like the situation changes every day. What somebody needs yesterday or 2 weeks ago is maybe not what they need today. And so anytime we have the financial capacity to really pivot our response and be nimble for them, means a lot. We have been getting a lot of questions around, like, do you need toilet paper? Do you need diapers? Do you need this, that, or the other thing? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. But because we're working remotely, a lot of times we can't get that stuff out quickly to our clients. And so if you are holding on to any of that stuff and would like to help out families, the best advice we can give you is to contact your local food pantry. We have a lot of folks using the food pantries in Newton, Waltham, Watertown, Acton, Lexington, kind of the surrounding MetroWest. And while we can't guarantee that that donation will necessarily go to a second step family, we know that a lot of our families are trying to use that to meet some of those needs for goods. But yeah, and then the other thing I would say is a huge help is that, you know, people are cut off from some of the places and providers that are good about keeping an eye out for folks and knowing the signs and warning signs of domestic violence. You know, kids aren't going to school. People are afraid to go to their doctor or to the hospital right now, given the infectivity of COVID-19. And so anytime that you can kind of be the eyes and ears for your family members, we greatly appreciate that. And so we are always posting stuff on our Facebook and on our website as well about ways that you can just support people. I know the Boston Police have a really great anonymous tip line that you can actually text if you have a question and feel like, you know, maybe your neighbor was experiencing domestic violence last night, and even though they're not immediately in trouble anymore, you know, you still want to get them some help. And so programs like ours are still operating just in different ways right now. And so anytime that you can share our resources, share our information, let people in your networks know that we're still open and still serving people, it might seem silly, but you never know who's listening and you never know what's happening in people's lives. And so that can make a big difference for a lot of people right now.
Right.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, I know that the Boston Buddies has a really wide reach, and that a lot of people in the Boston Buddies aren't necessarily in the area that we operate, which is like sort of the Greater Boston, Eastern Massachusetts area. And so there's a lot of other resources that we've been sharing and that you can share on your own social media or to your own families and friends, like national hotlines, international resources that might be sort of more effective ways if you're not from this area.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dana.
Yeah, I think after this we can post the national hotline, because there is a national hotline.
There is, yeah.
In the United States that we can post. Do you happen to know it offhand what the number is?
Oh boy. I don't have it off the top of my head.
That's fine.
I could give you the National Suicide Hotline. Oh, I can't give you the National Domestic Violence Hotline right now. It is 800-799-7233. And again, that's 800-799-7233. You can also go to the hotline.org, which I did know off the top of my head, to chat with an advocate. And so if you're in a position where talking on the phone is not feasible, the hotline.org does offer that text to chat option.
Okay, that's great information. Yeah, because we literally have runners all over the world.
Yeah.
And all over the United States as well. So I gotta ask you, what distance are you guys gonna run for the Molly Mile? You get to choose whatever the distance you want, but obviously it has to be more than a mile. Because your last
boy,
your fastest.
Then if it has to be more than a mile, maybe a mile and 1 meter.
There we go.
I'm not a runner, but I
Yeah.
am in a family of runners, so I will maybe throw that to them.
Awesome. Awesome. How about you, Mimi?
Well, Vince, you know I'm not a runner, and I actually need new shoes. So if anyone has a good recommendation for shoes, not necessarily for running, but I'm going to put some good distance on because I've been walking a lot, let me know.
There you go. Right. I'm a Hoka person. H-O-K.
Yeah.
Hoka.
Okay. We can look at some Hokas.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to make a guest appearance, I guess. Here we are, everyone. This is Charlie. And Charlie and I have been doing 3 to 5 miles a day. So maybe I will run part of that.
There you go. You can't wear the medal unless you do it.
Okay, I will commit to running part of that.
Great.
We'll run home from our walk.
Is there anything else that you guys want to mention or bring to the audience while you have everybody's attention here? Covered a lot. You guys did a great job explaining everything and giving out good information. And again, we'll follow up with the links for the fundraising and the national hotline as well on this page.
Yeah, I think we certainly covered a lot today. I think one thing that I would like to leave people with too is that you can always call us or your local agency if you're not in the area to ask questions too, so we have people come to us that either they or a family member is in a relationship that they don't feel good about, and they want to talk to someone to figure out, is this domestic violence? Is this just a bad relationship? And on more of a clinical scale, like we can help differentiate that for people and connect them in ways that are meaningful and helpful. And so if you have a question about yourself, if you have a question about a loved one, know that you can reach out. It doesn't have to be an immediate action plan that you call us for, if that makes sense.
Right. I remember when I first met up with Deborah and this organization, they gave me the statistics about the how many people are actually affected by domestic violence, and it's 1 in 3 for women and 1 in 4 for men. Is that still holding true? That's
still holding true. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and in certain communities it is a little bit higher. So we know specifically that statistic looks a little bit different for women that identify as bisexual. So that's the general numbers we hold on to.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a lot more prevalent. I remember just in our own group here, we have a lot of survivors, and people have posted personal stories in their intro videos and things like that. And it's something that people remain quiet about, but it's so prevalent. It's a shame because there's tons of organizations and there's other people that have gone through it and survived it. And people just need to know that there are people that can help you out there. So I just want to thank you and the whole organization for everything that you guys do. You guys definitely opened my eyes up when I first started talking with you guys. It wasn't really something that was truly part of my life, but now that I'm aware, I think about it a lot more, especially the charity and things like that you guys do. I appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you. And we can't, like Dana said, we can't thank you guys enough for everything that you have done, because just like we're pivoting and trying to respond to people's needs, you guys have been amazing in pivoting and responding to ours. So we appreciate it.
Yep. We'll be there. We'll be there this year. We'll be there in September and April again next year.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Dana, any final thoughts?
Not really. I think Mimi summed it up really well there. Yeah. I thank you so much, Vince, for supporting us in this way. And thank you to all the Boston buddies. Thank you to Shelly, who is our runner, and has been super great and just very encouraging. And yeah, I feel very lucky to, like, as a co-op student who sort of has 6 months with the second step, to have come in contact with so many amazing people. And yeah, so I'm thankful for this as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today, and appreciate everything that you guys do, and happy to support. And let's let's get this Moly Mile a big, let's make it even a bigger success. We'll get some more medals.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.